So Gwen, when clients come here, or maybe when they leave here, they usually feel empowered, and I get so many people saying how peaceful they feel here. What is it that you're doing differently from others in your field when you're working with clients?
That's an interesting question, because I have been aware from the beginning that I was doing something different than what I learned in my graduate training. In my graduate training, we learned about theories, we learned concepts, we learned techniques, and in my training, there wasn't so much emphasis on the client. It was, well, this is what the psychologist should do. If a client presents with this, then you should do this. And that just really never worked for me, because when clients would come in, I was not just interested in their symptoms. I was interested in their story, because a symptom, be it anxiety or depression or inability to fall asleep, is there for a reason. And sure, maybe we can use techniques to get them to sleep better or reduce their anxiety, but if we're not looking at their whole story, and that can be their story in this lifetime, or it can be their soul's journey. If we don't look at that, it's a little bit like painting over rust. My children once had a swing set, and it was red and white and bright and shiny, and after a few years I noticed some rust. So I went to the hardware store and got some spray paint and painted over it, and thought, that's wonderful, it looks good now. Well, the next year it was rusty again, because I learned that if you don't sand it down and put some kind of a sealant on it and then paint, the rust is going to keep coming back. So a quick fix can make the symptom go away, but the root cause of that is still there, and it will come up again and again. And so the person that I'm dealing with, the soul of that being, is something first and foremost that I honor, and that is more important than what kind of psychological theory I might be using. In fact, I tend to stay away from those, because there is no one size fits all. And one of my clients that I've recently been working with severe complex PTSD, had seen psychiatrists, psychologists, he'd been hospitalized, medicated, and finally he went to an occupational stress injury clinic, and they diagnosed him with complex PTSD and said, there's no treatment for that. No treatment in their books, perhaps. Within 4 sessions, in working with, looking at the story and my tuning into what he was doing with the pain and how he had come to identify himself with that. Within 4 sessions, he said, I have hope. And I have a very strong and powerful belief that I can create deep change in clients, or I should say I can help them to create that deep change. And I think the strength in my belief, the trust in the process, is felt by my clients. And in having that trust and knowing that they're honored and that they can completely be themselves, and they don't have to worry about being embarrassed. For me, therapy is about, it's not about science, it's about creating a very safe place so that healing can happen. Not just healing of the symptom, but healing of the past, or healing the pain that comes from being disconnected from one's soul. So there's a lot of love in that.
Your tagline is the gentle voice of change. How did that come out of your work?
Well, I realized long ago that change, when people get upset with something, or they're angry and they argue their point, that just creates more pain, or makes a person feel intimidated, or creates a win-lose, right-wrong scenario. And it became clear to me that the way to bring change in a way that is deeply healing, it must be gentle, and it must be peaceful, and that I believe, as a therapist, as a healer, I absolutely must manifest the things that I'm talking about, or I wouldn't be real. And I think it's true too that we can't take someone any farther than where we are ourselves. So, if you've got a guide and you're going through a jungle, and then the guide stops and says, okay, well, I haven't been through this before, but I think it's that way. The person is on their own. So in I suppose looking for healing, there's maybe somebody for everyone, but if we're looking at that deep healing on a soul level, it's important then to be working with someone who has done their own soul healing and isn't carrying old wounds or carrying ego issues. There has to be that purity there.
That makes sense. That's a lot to think about. Thank you, Gwen.
Thank you.